A 27-year-old farmer from Chipping Norton pulled up to his own wedding in a bright orange McLaren worth £250,000, his 5-year-old son Oscar riding shotgun. The destination, Meriscourt, a 500-acre estate a few minutes from Diddley Squat Farm, the same fields where he learned to drive a tractor as a kid. That farmer is Caleb Cooper. 3 years ago, he was hauling veg boxes and picking up contracting jobs around Oxfordshire for rates that barely covered diesel. He was the local lad who grumbled about driving as far as Banbury. His Instagram was muddy boots and broken machinery. Nobody, least of all him, expected he'd one day be driven past Diddley Squat in a supercar with photographers waiting. This wasn't just a farm boy settling down. It was, in effect, the graduation ceremony for the most valuable unscripted character in British TV. And most people watching had no idea what they were actually looking at. Why the location matters. Meriscourt sits minutes from Diddley Squat, inside the same small radius where a £45 million farm valuation, a £12.5 million land value jump, a £2 million a year farm shop, and a brewery pulling in £21.3 million a year are all playing out. Caleb was born here, learned to farm here, met his now wife Taya Wilkinson here, and became famous here. The wedding courtyard would look familiar to anyone who's watched enough of Clarkson's farm. The morning started at a local pub with his groomsmen. No hotel ballroom, no big city venue. Then came the moment that broke the internet for a day. Caleb rolling up to Diddley Squat in the McLaren, borrowed for the occasion, Oscar beside him. The same man who once said he rarely left Banbury arrived at his wedding in one of the most recognizable cars on earth, on a road Amazon turned into a global landmark. Taya wore white with a wildflower bouquet. Caleb wore a suit and his signature yellow tie. Their main wedding photo was in front of a tractor, the only shot that made sense for them. When Caleb posted it the next morning, 3 million followers saw it within hours. Not a wedding album, a broadcast. Who showed up? Jeremy Clarkson was there. So was Lisa Hogan, the Clarkson's farm cast, and Eddie Hall, the former world's strongest man, now orbiting the Diddley Squat universe. Clarkson didn't just attend. He supplied unlimited Hawkstone beer and cider for every guest, brewed on the same farm Caleb has worked for 5 years. The man who owns the farm and the brewery served drinks at the wedding of the man who helped build both. That detail matters more than it looks. 3 weeks earlier, in the closing episodes of Clarkson's Farm Season 5, Clarkson told Caleb and land agent Charlie Ireland he'd been diagnosed with aggressive prostate cancer, caught early, expected to recover, but sidelined for a while. Caleb later spoke publicly about how hard that hit him, calling Clarkson his best mate. What started as a TV dynamic, bumbling celebrity, exasperated young farmer, had genuinely become a real friendship over 5 seasons. So Clarkson showing up at the reception, still recovering from surgery, wasn't a PR obligation. It was a man turning up for his friend. The relationship behind it, Caleb and Taya, have been together a decade. Childhood sweethearts from the same corner of Oxfordshire. When Caleb first appeared on the show in 2021, he already had a son, Oscar, born weeks before the series aired. Daughter Willa followed in 2023, and son Ashton last August. On the day Ashton was born, Caleb was mid-harvest and told Taya to hold on until he'd finished the row, a story Clarkson later wrote about, calling him the boy wonder. A friend had suggested naming the baby after the field he was working in when the call came, a field literally named Dead Man. They went with Ashton instead. Caleb proposed on Christmas Day 2022. 3 kids arrived before the wedding did, which finally happened in July 2026. The real story. This is a business, not a farm. Look past the car and the venue, and you find the real numbers. Caleb's production company, sitting on equity, approaching 7 figures, up from 50 pence an hour. 3 Penguin bestsellers. An Amazon content deal independent of Clarkson's farm. A contracting business that kept running even as cameras turned his workdays into episodes. A holdings company set up because he's planning to buy land. The McLaren and the venue weren't indulgence. They were a visible marker of how far the operation has scaled. The council that accidentally built the machine, West Oxfordshire District Council, spent years thinking they were regulating a farm shop, writing planning conditions, capping expansion, imposing a 16-mile sourcing radius on suppliers. What they actually did was hand the show storylines. Every restriction became a plot point. Every objection gave Amazon a reason to keep filming. Lisa Hogan has said that sourcing radius, meant to limit them, turned out to be the best thing that happened to the business, forcing them to build a hyper-local supplier network no major supermarket chain could replicate. The council thought they were closing doors. They were creating episodes. The Flywheel 3 assets now feed each other. The land, bought for around £6 million in 2008, now valued at £12.5 million. The farm shop, grown from £44,000 in initial assets to roughly £2 million in annual revenue and 25,000 visitors a year. And Hawkstone Brewery, revenue up from £7.8 million to £21.3 million in 2025, a 134% growth rate, a $75 million valuation, and a rejected $50 million buyout offer from Carlsberg. None of this is really a farm business anymore. It's a content and commerce loop that converts friction and failure into equity, episodes, and now, weddings that double as season finales. Caleb's arc sits right inside that loop. From 50p an hour to a business that owns assets and is preparing to buy land. From book deals to his own Amazon series, Caleb Down Under, sending the man who once hated leaving Oxfordshire to Australia. What's still uncertain: Clarkson's cancer recovery. A season 6 that's confirmed but conditional on his health. Ongoing planning battles with the council. A harvest that still has to happen. None of this is guaranteed to have a clean ending. But the wedding answered one thing clearly. Caleb Cooper isn't a supporting character anymore. He's the person standing opposite Clarkson as the show's second lead. Proof that with cameras, capital, and the right characters, a struggling farm can be turned into a symbol of what modern farming can become.